Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Thank you for joining us tonight. The issue of the transfer of the chairmanship of SADC is going full steam ahead. The Council of Ministers have just been meeting in Zimbabwe, and this Council of Ministers usually takes place ahead of the head of states. And the chairmanship of the Council of Ministers has moved from the present chair to Zimbabwe minister, and the minister, the Council of Ministers chairmanship has moved to Zimbabwe's Minister of Foreign Affairs, who is Mr. Frederick Msiwa Makamure Shava. He was Zimbabwe's Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's the Zimbabwe's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, and he was appointed and sworn in March 2021, following the death of the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sibusiso Moyo. Before that, Frederick Shava was Zimbabwe's ambassador to the UN. He was appointed 2014 to 2021. Ben, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, and good day to all our viewers. Yeah, I should agree with you first to say, it's all systems go as far as SADC transfer of power to Zimbabwe is concerned. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, I think he took over this position a few weeks back when I saw the headlines. So I think that's a done deal. Now we are just waiting for this chairmanship to follow through in the next few days. I believe it's on Saturday, where everybody is expected to be here in Zimbabwe for this handover of the chairmanship to Zimbabwe. So on that regard, I believe SADC is already a done deal. Basically, we can try and say otherwise on our different media outlets, but it's a done deal as far as the process is. Basically, the process is moving forward as scheduled.
Well, who is Frederick Msiwa Makamure Shava? Well, he has got a history. I think the most important reality about this man is that he was involved. He was one of the ministers involved in the now infamous Willowville motor scandal. Here is Jeff Nyarota, the man who was behind the uncovering of the Willowville motor scandal. And he can give us the background, what it was all about.
He was the one who purchased the vehicle.
Right.
But he sent the other, Alvord Mpofu was the name, Alvord Mpofu, to purchase and collect the vehicle. Now, to facilitate this transaction, Naran gave the required amount to Alvord Mpofu in cash, who took it to the Bank of Credit and Commerce so that they would issue him with a check to take to Harare. which Alvo Tumpofu did, and he paid for the required vehicle. But as I explained, they didn't have the
right car.
The right car. That's how the Willowgate scandal started. Now, I went to the bank when I started to smell a dead rat and inquired about the circumstances of the purchase of this vehicle. Now, the bank manager, Mr. Akhtar of the Bank of Credit and Commerce, which you guys used to call the Bank of something and Thieves.
Yeah. It was called, yeah?
Yeah. He was not amused by my line of questioning. But he cleared himself. He says, look, is it any of your business if a customer of mine brings in cash and I issue him with a check? Well, I considered that this was normally not my business. But in this case, I suspected that this had become my business. Because no sooner had I left Mr. Akhtar's office than he put a call through to Mr. Naran to say the editor of the Chronicle was here making inquiries about your check. Well, Mr. Naran in turn was not amused. So he calls me and he's really upset. And he starts threatening me. He says that, I didn't mention that Mr. Naran was the biggest advertiser in the Chronicle at the material time. So he says, look, if you insist on this line of questioning about my affairs, I will do the only reasonable thing, which is cancel my contract with your paper. This was a big threat because Mr. Naran used to sign 6 months contracts. And that's a lot of money, as you know. Of course. Anyway, that's how the story started. And it started. Now, Mr. Naran had been assisted by the Minister of Commerce and Industry, the late Callistus Dingiswayo Ndlovu. That ministry was responsible for Willowvale. And so Honorable Ndlovu sat in a very cushy position, influential position in terms of allocation of vehicles to the favored ones, which refer to the government ministers, following a decision by the government, by cabinet, that cabinet ministers must be granted precedence in securing much needed vehicles so that, to quote their words, they could visit their constituencies. This happened to start with. But the ministers, instead of visiting their constituencies, they pounced on a more profitable alternative, which was to buy these vehicles and sell them on the black market. And in no time, a lot of President Mugabe's honorable ministers had become reputable car dealers. That was the story which we investigated and exposed, resulting in the president establishing the Sandura Commission and witnessing a number of his closest allies being humiliated in front of the public. This was quite an unprecedented experience. People could not believe, those that went to the High Court where the Sandura Commission held its hearings, seeing the high and the mighty being reduced to ordinary levels.
For cars.
For cars. Resulting in a number of them, 5 ministers, including Minister Njovu, Minister Nkala, Minister Frederick Shawa, now Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Zingai Mtumbuka, then of Education, now living in Maryland, in the
Washington,
States,
the US,
in
yeah.
Washington, yes. And the now late Minister
Maurice
Nyagumbo,
committing suicide,
who unfortunately proceeded to commit suicide.
There we have it. This is the man, Frederick Shawa, who is now part of the SADC, Council of Ministers, and to be soon be joined in that role by Emmerson Mnangagwa. Zimbabwe, for the next 12 months then, will be responsible for fostering commerce development within the SADC region and also liaising with outsiders coming in on behalf of SADC. This is laughable. These are individuals. This is a regime that is a pariah state that has failed. Zimbabwe's economy is in total economic meltdown because Zimbabwe is a pariah state. And they are now being entrusted with promoting development within the SADC region. This is laughable. I think SADC is putting their trust in somebody whom they should not trust at all. Zimbabwe is struggling to revive its own economy because Zimbabwe, like I said, is a pariah state. We've just rigged elections for Pete's sake, confirming opposition as a pariah state. And now they're being asked or entrusted with promoting development within the whole SADC region and to liaise with outsiders on behalf of the whole SADC region. This is what I find ridiculous about this whole thing.
You know, it's like somebody that has just failed to run a little corner store. In Zimbabwe, we call them tuck shops. You know, just these small little shops that sell, you know, small little wares, you know, or on the roadside. Somebody that has failed to run that, and then you go and give them a mega store or a superstore to run. This is exactly what SADC is doing here. We all know Zimbabwe is failing to put its own affairs in order. When it comes to investment, when it comes to development, there's been nothing that has been developing in Zimbabwe for decades now. So for them now to go and give them such a task to say you are in charge of all Southern Africa in terms of development, surely, you know, I don't think from that point I would expect anything from ZANU or from Zimbabwe rather. And I think, you know, it's laughable for SADC to actually come up with such a theme to say, you know, you are going to be in charge of such a, you know, a mission. It's a mission impossible. Zimbabwe is trying to re-engage and people are shunning away from it because of the current crop of politicians that we have, or within the, you know, the current regime, which is corrupt, like you were stating before, the Willowgate scandals and many other scandals before that, and many scandals after that. So investors, in terms of investment, I don't think anybody is going to trust Zimbabwe as far as their monies are concerned. Period. So it's sometimes you really do wonder why institutions like SADC would entask guys like ZANU PF, who are failing at home, with such a big task. I mean, really, you have to be. It's common sense can just simply just tell you that this is what we are doing. It doesn't make any sense. But then I understand that this is a rotational thing. It's Zimbabwe's turn. What can you do if that is what they are being faced with? Then yeah, but they have a situation on their hands. For this whole year, they might as well just shelve any form of development and hope that they will just maintain. Period.
Vana vakatuka ZANU-PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara zvatiri kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vako vachikurumbidza unenge uchikanganisa. Ukavona vachiti ZANU-PF yakaipa, farai. You are doing correct things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu, kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelections anafamba zvakanaka, ndezvavo.
that the regime continued to maintain its position as that the elections were free, fair, and credible. That is tragic. Many countries have been, many people inside Zimbabwe and outside have been calling for SADC leaders not to attend this SADC meeting and confirm Mnangagwa's position as the chairperson. And in particular, South Africans have been saying that it will not come as a surprise at all if Zambia was indeed to decide they will not attend the SADC summit in Zimbabwe in a few days' time. I would not be surprised at all, given what happened, the abuse that Dr. Nevers Mumba received for having issued a critical report on Zimbabwe's elections. Ben, would you like to give your closing remarks?
Yes. So in closing, you know, you were just playing that video of Mnangagwa saying, you know, those that are saying that the Zimbabwean elections, you know, they didn't go well. And he says, well, that's their own business. This just brings out to show, you know, look, he's arrogant, yes. But SADC was one of those people that actually said that the elections did not go well. So in other words, Mnangagwa is addressing to say, SADC, you know, that's your own buzz, that you feel that the elections didn't go as well. That's your own buzz. So how then, you know, do you find SADC giving the chairmanship to somebody that, you know, is practically giving you the middle finger? You know, from that point, you know, it's absurd. And then this is where you end up wondering, you know, as an institution, as Southern Africa, where are we going? Where do we see ourselves in the next 30 years? Where do we see Africa in the next 50 years? If we, you know, can just continue or just turn a blind eye to something like this. Somebody that does not respect a member that does not even respect the organization. And then you give that person basically the reins of the organization to run. I'm worried in terms of Africa, you know, or Southern Africa particular. Where are we going if we are going to be doing such things? So I'm basically on this subject. My closing is I'm left with more questions than answers. It baffles me really how you could, you know, just turn a blind eye to somebody that has just said something, you know, as you know, direct insult to an organization as this.
Yeah, that is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. That is the tragedy of Africa. We have a situation here where, because SADC, while they accepted the SADC report that Zimbabwe's 2023 elections were not free, fair, and credible, and therefore then per se, ZANU-PF was illegitimate. They did not take the necessary steps of denying ZANU-PF legitimacy for whatever reason. And now the consequences of that is that Zimbabwe is stuck with a corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical regime for the next 5 years. And SADC itself finds itself in a situation where they have got a regime that has no international respect at all as the head of the regional body. The next year is going to be a challenge for both SADC and Zimbabwe. And I'm sure both Zimbabweans and the regional body are holding their breath and hoping that at the end of the regime's term, a year for SADC, 5 years for Zimbabwe, the country will not be in a serious mess. The region will not be in a serious mess. We did not have to go through this. This could have been avoided if SADC had taken decisive steps to deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy. That is the reality that we've got to deal with now. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us. And for those of you who were able to join us tonight, thank you again, and have a good night.